I'm Robert Scoble, and we get around the world and see lots of innovative business ideas. But today we're going to see a new one where they're mixing social and invoices together. It's called Tradeshift. Let's see it now. Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Christian Lanng. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tradeshift. I'm a sociologist by education. I'm actually a dropout because I got caught in building the whole national infrastructure for a year around electronic invoicing. So I'm, I think, one of the few college dropouts that went to do a big government project. And after that, we got really bored, so we had to do our own startup in this area.
Very cool. You're one of those companies that when you first hear it, it's like, why do I need this? And what does it replace? And why would a business use it?
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about what it is and why we need this.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very simple. Invoicing is something all companies do. It's actually also one of the few business processes that's really viral. If I invoice you, you have to invoice somebody else or you go out of business. So that's sort of the rules of the game. So invoicing, that's a very natural process for all business. But the reason that you have been doing it on paper for so many years is actually that when we invented the printer, we just started adding more and more information to these invoices. And suddenly, those invoices, these pieces of paper, they were not meant for humans. They were meant for other computer systems where they were typed in. And what we're doing today is actually we're having one computer system where we take all that data, we print it out on paper, and for some bizarre reason, we move it around on paper until we get to another computer system where we type it in again. And if you take PDF, that's basically the same. It's moved electronically. We save a little bit of CO2 and so on, but it's just as stupid. Somebody has to type that data in. So this is not a new problem. It's something that people have been trying to solve for the last 30 years. Actually, most of the innovation behind the internet and so on comes from these old trade networks. But a lot of the problems has been this is really, really complex. There's no open standards, unlike the internet, actually. It's a very good case for why something like the internet changed the whole consumer world, but B2B didn't happen. So there was a lack of open standards, there was a lack of open platforms, there was no shared formats between accounting systems, and it was something small businesses absolutely hated to do. So you got all the big suppliers who were forced to somebody like Walmart to use these systems, they would do it, but small businesses, they would still keep doing, paper invoicing, or today maybe PDF invoicing. So we wanted to change that for Tradeshift and create a real electronic solution to invoicing that could be used by most accounting systems and was really easy to use and gave you a tool that was useful for small business while taking away, millions of pieces of paper for the large enterprises.
Wow. So, I've done books at companies on QuickBooks,
Yeah.
and I've seen Bill.com. What do I use it with those systems, or do I use it to replace those systems? I don't quite understand that.
I mean, there's a huge long tail in the world today. There's 125 million registered businesses. Yeah. I talked to some of the guys from Intuit, and I said, you guys, you are the biggest accounting system in the US. They say, no, it's Excel. We only have 20% of the market. 80% of the businesses, they use Excel or Word or something like that. And we think there's a huge space for small business to just use something like Tradeshift, where you can get going in 3 minutes. You don't have to know anything about accounting. Yeah. And most business software today, that's built around a big understanding of how accounting works, which is something most small business owners actually don't know when they start.
Yeah.
So there's a huge gap in how that looks and what they're used to, which is much more like Facebook or Gmail and so on.
Tell me about, you just came out last year. What's the growth been like on this?
Yeah, so we launched very naively, we launched in 3 markets last year, in Germany, in UK, and in Ireland. And we thought, now we're going to control and see what happens in these 3 markets. And it just exploded between our hands because Tradeshift is basically viral. So whenever you invoice somebody, you get an invite to join the network. So in less than 6 months, we were in 100 countries. And today we're in 170 countries. So it's just exploded globally. Wow. And actually what's been interesting as we have more growth today in India and China and some parts of Africa than we have in the US.
That makes sense because the market sizes are just immense there.
Exactly, and you get a whole new, you're going to get more new businesses in China and India next year than you have in all of US, right? So there's a huge, tremendous growth in this layer. And these small businesses, they're global and they use technology in a whole new way.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So tell me what if I'm a small business, I'm running a yogurt shop and I need to invoice my milk supplier.
Yeah.
What does it look like and how do I get into it?
Yeah, so I mean, when you log on to Tradeshift first time, you see something that looks very much like Facebook. You have a dashboard, you have a activity stream with history. You're probably not sent any invoices yet. There's a big green create invoice button. And the first thing you do when you have to create an invoice is you have to find somebody in your network. You can do that by typing in an email address. If they're not there, you can create an account and you can send them an PDF invoice on email. So it's something that's extremely simple. You can do it in less than 2 minutes. You haven't gone, you send your first invoice. But if that other side joins the network as well, you can do a lot more. Then you can start to suddenly comment on the invoice. You can see how payments are doing. Is it updated with the payments and so on. So you get a lot of extra relations going on the moment the other side joins the network.
Can I find new suppliers to this?
If
I need a new milk supplier and there's a couple of milk suppliers in your service, can I?
Yeah, you can actually do that, but we're not Alibaba. So if you know the Chinese Alibaba platform where you're actually going to find suppliers, one of the things we wanted was to support existing business relations. So it's not a network to find all new suppliers, but you can actually share your prices, and you can, we're coming out with something we call the price list app, where you can put in all your prices. You can share it to the customers you're interested in, or you can put them public.
Well, that's interesting because you can track inflation better than probably the feds can.
Yeah, we can, and we can actually also see a lot of what's happening in global trade patterns right now. So that's quite interesting.
Are you learning anything like about Japan right now?
So yeah, actually we saw, for instance, Libya and Egypt. We saw the moment that dropped out. Also, the invoice volume, a long time before actually went down. So you could see that people, they were disrupted in their daily lives and they were not running their businesses. So you actually have a warning before these things happen. And I think, just like you see in the consumer world.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's the headline. Because you guys, by centralizing invoices, can see all sorts of interesting patterns that nobody else can see.
Yeah. And I think, of course, it's a balance. We are very strict around looking into data. We normally only do it when the users ask us to do it. That can also mean like installing an app. We actually have a manifest, just like you have on Android, that says, this app will touch these data. Will you allow it? And of course, this is people's business data. This is not only their private lives. It's actually their businesses and companies. So we have to be very strict with the data. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in the data, and you can do a lot of interesting stuff at the moment you have a graph. You probably know all about this, but for instance, let's say a company joins in Africa, it adds 1,000 customers, it sends out 1,000 uniform invoices to these guys. Well, it's a pattern we fairly easily can recognize as bad. We don't need to look at the data, but we can see the pattern as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The feds are going to come to you for new pattern recognition.
Yeah, so,
Because when I worked at NEC, I used to have to fill out a piece of paper saying how many computers we sold that month and how much we sold them for. Yeah. And that's how the Fed knew whether there was inflation going on in the economy or not. And it's really an inefficient method.
Yeah.
Right?
You actually see in some countries right now, in Brazil, for instance, electronic invoicing is being mandated to combat fraud. So you're seeing it's happening, and I think in the next 5 years we more or less be moved to electronic invoicing, and it will be the standard to do the messaging.
Yeah. But do you have any competitors?
It's an interesting space. I think we have a lot of incumbents. We have somebody like Ariba, who've been doing electronic invoicing for large companies for many years, for 10 years. We have had somebody like FreshBooks, but they basically only do it for small businesses and moving into becoming more and more of an accounting system. So in this exact space, what we can call a B2B network or a social B2B network, that didn't exist before we did.
Yeah, it's really interesting. If I'm that milk supplier, what happens on my screen when somebody invoices me? What
so the first thing that happens is you get a in network request to somebody to join your network, and you will see you have a document pending. So before you can see that document, you have to accept that network connection. And we do that so the other side can't claim, you saw my invoice because I sent it to you. So you actually, sort of protect it before you accept that network connection. But the moment you accept it, you'll receive that invoice. You can see the status of it. You can see how much it is. You can, update it, tell, I accept this invoice. You can reject it, leave a small message. Why do I reject this invoice? Or you can even make a comment like, I ordered the blue chairs. I got the red chairs. That's not what I ordered. Can we do something about it? And that's also one of the very big points. We have some very large enterprise customers where they used to get 10,000 phone calls for each 100,000 invoices they received. Wow. So it's not only about the paper, but if you're a big corporation, people, the most common question they call you with is, have you received my invoice?
Yeah.
So we update that straight away. So when they receive it in the SAP system, we actually move that status to the small business and now and telling them, you know what, they have received the invoice and now it's accepted. It's going to be paid in 90 days.
Wow. That removes costs because phone calls cost money.
Yeah.
Why do PDF? Why not just a web-based form?
So it's the form is fully web-based, and if you send to somebody else on Tradeshift, it's actually XML we move around. It's only the moment you export or send to somebody outside the network, it goes out as PDF. So you can always save an invoice as PDF, but the invoices are XML, and that's something we wanted from the beginning, because we also wanted to be able to play with the data. We wanted to be able to let other people build apps that did stuff with the data and insert it themselves and so on.
Yeah. If I'm a dairy, going back to the yogurt example, and I'm buying milk from 3 people, is there a way for me to see whether I'm paying the average price for milk, or that I'm paying too much, or should I renegotiate?
Yeah. So that's actually that's some of the stuff we're launching right now, and we're really excited about it. And what we wanted was, there's all this stuff. People, when they see our networks, they say, "Oh, couldn't we, do something like this? Couldn't we do currency calculation? Couldn't we do, conversion? Couldn't I do an app that did credit ratings and so on?" So we spent almost half a year building an app framework where you can build apps on top of Tradeshift. So a little bit like Farmville on Facebook, but with real business data.
Wow.
And what we have is we have a complete secure framework. So you can actually do stuff that manipulate the data on the page without, bringing the data outside the platform and so on. So that's an area we're seeing exploding. We have people right now building currency conversion. We have people building credit ratings, price list, and so on.
Wow. What happens if I invoice you and you don't pay me? What shows up there?
Yeah, so we also get some support tickets that says, I have not been paid. And, it's a hard thing to help with. But typically, what you can do is you can send a reminder. And you can also, there are some services that allow you to integrate with them and actually do a more automated reminder, escalate it, and so on. But one thing that we really spend a lot of time on is to say, when you're using Tradeshift, you should actually make sure you use the status and tell if this invoice is accepted or just pending and so on, because that gives a lot of information in the network, and you know much more where am I in this business process.
Yeah. You at least know the other person's side.
Exactly. Yeah. Instead of it just, you don't know if you send it to a black hole on the other side.
If this person consistently doesn't pay their invoices, does it get marked in the system like this guy is?
So that's some of the things you can do. Dun & Bradstreet are building an app that actually allows you to do that, so you can report them to a Dun & Bradstreet credit rating.
Cool. And you keep talking about these apps that people are building. What's that like to build these apps? What languages, and how do I build one of these apps?
So we wanted to create something that was completely web-based. So you actually use JavaScript. And you can work directly from the JavaScript on the page. We have an app editor where you can actually have your own ID inside Tradeshift. You can build these apps, you can make calls to the API, and it's completely standard web technologies.
Very cool.
And one of the things is not just a stupid iframe, bringing in something from another side. It's actually stuff that can work with the page directly.
Very cool. Can you tell me a little bit about your infrastructure? Because you're obviously building a global company. You must not have just a server underneath your desk.
No, that's true. We have two. So one of the things I think is really interesting is we started with a messaging infrastructure. If you see where some of the social networks are moving today, what Facebook are doing right now, they're actually moving to become a messaging infrastructure. But we have the luxury of starting there. So our whole infrastructure is built to be completely scalable around messages. It's built on Amazon right now. Cut that out.
We'd love to get you on Access.
Exactly. So, it's and we do all the same tricks that Google do. So if we have a load, we scale up new instances and so on. So that is technology we built from the bottom up, and that's where we spent the first year before we launched Tradeshift getting this right.
Very cool.
Because we knew it was about getting the transaction volume there.
Yeah. No, it's worth noting we don't make you be a Rackspace customer to get on our show. So we would love to have you.
Yeah. We can talk about it after.
All right. Any last thing I need to know about Tradeshift and where you guys are going?
Yeah. So I think it's in the next few years you're going to see a whole explosion in this field of B2B, because the consumer space is already very, very much settled, and you'll see all these technologies flow over. So I think if you're sitting out there and you're an app developer, or you're looking at what can you do in this space, look at something like Tradeshift, because you can actually use it as your building blocks for an app. You don't have to do all the hard stuff. We have people who are building an accounting package in less than 14 days on top of our data model, because all the stuff, all the security, all the contact information is there.
Very cool.
Okay.
Where do we learn more about it?
So we just launched our app framework here at Web 2.0. We have a website called developer.tradeshift.com where you can go in and you can look at that. And of course, you'll hear a lot more in the future.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.